All right, we're now officially live, and it's of course in focus o'clock. Thank you so much for making time and for joining us right on the program. Every Sunday, we definitely take a pause and just come here on this particular studio to talk about various topical issues, and with an aim of just trying to make sense out of them, with an aim of just making sure that we have a platform that enables us to share our views concerning important matters in this beautiful country of ours and also beyond. My name, as always, is Eugene Anangwe. Thank you so much for being with us. Of course, we are also live on YouTube. Definitely, if you can be able to go on our YouTube channel, you'll be able to see that the show is also live. If you have your friend who doesn't have a television set, tell them that they can still be able to watch it on YouTube. We got you covered. So our topic tonight is on Rwanda's new penal code, and the question we're asking you is, do you have information about this revised penal code? And of course, we'll be tackling two major issues. And if you have any other issues that are contentious in your own opinion, feel free to share them with us. We'll be looking at the area of the decriminalization of defamation, plus of course the area of adultery and its punishment. So what we need to know today is that adultery in Rwanda remains a criminal offense, punishable with imprisonment, among other punishments, even if the aggrieved spouse forgives their partner. This is a fact, and it's also right there. I see Remy Jiro came and put that emoji right there. Now you know. In case you're planning to do or commit adultery now, you definitely know what it will entail. So we'll be spending some time to talk about this particular issue over here. We also know that the general defamation, which was actually a criminal offense, attracting a jail term of up to 1 year and a fine of up to 5 million Rwandan francs, has actually been dropped from the list of criminal offenses. The question we'll be asking ourselves is, how much is this going to contribute in the improvement of the content as far as media is concerned in Rwanda? Is it going to promote responsible journalism? Definitely this is what we'll be talking about. All you need to do when you're talking to us, simply just add the hashtag InFocus. RW, it will help us to track your tweets. Very important indeed, so that we're able to actually share them right in the program. I'll be coming back on this screen to do that. Let me introduce our panelists on the program tonight. We have Dr. Caroline Nabuzale, who's actually a board member, East African Communication Association. She's also a media and communications consultant and a lecturer. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Welcome.
Right.
Viewers.
Thank you so much. We also have none other than Gatete Nyiringabo. Today I was very sure I'm not going to do the Thierry because you sounded a warning. Why do you address me as Thierry? So today we'll definitely address you as Gatete. Thank you so much, human rights lawyer and a blogger. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Gatete Views. Okay, we also have none other than Gonzaga Muganwa, who's actually with the Rwanda Journalists Association. Thank you so much for joining us. All right, and also for the first time on InFocus, after we changed a lot of staff here, is James Munyaneza, Managing Editor, The New Times Rwanda. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So we know that there's been a long journey to actually changing this penal code. What we know is that in December 2017, Rwanda's penal code was actually revised, and this revision had actually proposed a removal of general defamation from criminal offenses. And we know that today, under this freshly gazetted penal code, defamation is off the list of the issues that are considered as crimes. But the new penal code provides that cartoons portraying politicians and leaders in an embarrassing manner will still be criminal. And this is something that we want to start with. I want to start with you, Dr. Caroline. What is your take, first of all, the fact that Rwanda has come this long journey? We've had a lot of lobbying going on, Gonzaga Institution and others trying to push for this, and finally it has come through. From a regional perspective, what is your take on this?
Okay, good evening, viewers. I think this is a very big step that the media fraternity has achieved, and it is a plus, even on the side of government, because if the media laws were criminal before, there is a lot of content that we're missing out, because people were fearing to talk about certain issues because that's the no-go zone. And one is never sure of whether they are going to commit crime or say the rightful things. But with this new law that has been passed, I think we are going to have enough content, pluralism in the local content. There are issues that we've not been hearing about, especially one of the functions of the media is to hold public institutions accountable. Yeah. So the role of accountability of the media as a watchdog in society, we are going to begin seeing it in this country, just like from the regional perspective, the other countries in East Africa. We have seen some of these issues coming out where public figures, government leaders are ridiculed at times when they do something that is not right and are brought to book. That is a role of the media in society, accountability role. And I think this is a very good step. I want to say that
it's a good
it
step
is
in
so
the
good.
direction.
I am happy about it. And I hope we are going to begin seeing the media more vibrant in this country.
I'm going to just rush through and cut across to James, who actually sits on his desk as a managing editor. I want to understand, what was so difficult for you as a managing editor, for instance, to actually commission certain stories that you felt was risky for either your reporter or for your institution, for your publication, that you feel now, under this new penal code with the removal of defamation as a general defamation as a criminal offense to a civil offense, that now you feel that I can now be able to commission my journalists to actually do this story? What sort of stories were these?
Thank you, Eugene. I'll give you my general view of the whole situation. One is about the spirit. And you want to think that the government, parliament, the people of Rwanda are saying, look, we are offering you more space. We are broadening space. You can venture into this territory without fear for jail term of initially
1 year.
There was a proposal to actually initially increase it from 1 year to 3 years, I think, maximum of 3 years, and then all of a sudden it was struck out. So I think it portrays goodwill on the part of the government to say, look, we acknowledge the role of the media. We know the media can do better in Rwanda, and here you can go as far as this or beyond this territory, as far as you're doing it responsibly. But this does not necessarily, of course, mean that now journalists have leeway to abuse this goodwill. That's why we have our own self-regulatory body, RMC, that actually has been doing this job. Even when we still had this defamation as a criminal offense, most of these cases ended up with RMC, and they held, they had the hearings, they addressed these issues, and more than, I think, 50 of the cases we had and sorted, and I think there is also confidence on from the government or the media side. The government saying, look, I think the media is growing. There's some improvement. There's some confidence, some responsibility. We can trust them more, and let's see how it goes. And I want to think that going forward, even a few things that are still there that we're probably not very comfortable with, I want to think positively and say that we'll progressively get there.
Get there.
So I think the question you asked about the journalists, I think, well, it builds confidence. It starts from there. The confidence of the journalist, of the editor to commission the stories, to say, look, the government is saying you can do better in terms of holding us to account.
Right. And come to Gatete now, because in the end, when we were having this push as far as media fraternity is concerned, there's also still felt that it is not yet time to celebrate, because in the end there's this still but. When you're being told you can do this, but the thing is, if you actually do cartoons portraying politicians or leaders in an embarrassing manner, then you'll be liable to actually a criminal offense. I want to hear whether you feel, as a human rights lawyer, because in the end, who determines what is embarrassing? Who at the end, says that this actually made me look embarrassing? Because we see people wanting to communicate in creative ways. We've seen cartoons being used as satirical ways of actually making a point. So how do journalists get away with this? How do bloggers also get away with this? Because this is something that also touches on your end.
Thank you, Eugene. So I just want to, coming back briefly to the concept that this is going to give the media more space, it's probably true. But the penal code is not, this particular penal code is only a recognition of what has already been done.
Yeah.
In the era of social media and of the media, we are not, in fact, we are not about to discover new thing. Freedom. I heard colleagues saying that now Rwandan journalists are going to start holding their leaders accountable.
Yes.
I was like, wait a minute. Rwandan journalists have been holding their leaders accountable before this penal code was changed like this today. In fact, this penal code, it's representatives of the people recognizing what is already taking stock of what is already happening in the media. Right. And we're not talking about journalists only. We're talking about journalists on the one hand, but we're also talking about people, the public on social media. This is not going to touch only journalists, only people who work for media organizations. So it's not, I don't think it's a groundbreaking. I think it's a journey, it's a process. And I'll come back to the cartoons. For instance, the New Times, the East African, and all these media houses have had cartoonists on their payroll who have a weekly or a daily column who do that on a daily basis. So cartoons are not going to start now or to stop now. Cartoons are going to continue. So basically,
but we're talking about the embarrassing part. How do we define that?
But why?
Yes.
Why? Let's look at why we have these types of provisions. So let's just, let me also remind you that defamation is, in Africa, there's only now Kenya, Ghana, and Rwanda, 3 countries that have removed defamation. All over Africa, defamation is there. In Europe, it's also around 3 countries, Holland, the UK, and the US in America. All European democracies all have defamation laws, all of them. So defamation laws are not something new. And also, Rwanda is not enacting them for the first. In fact, Rwanda is the first, is the third in Africa now to remove criminalizing. Now, coming back to cartoons, we have a country that has had media being used. It's not really about cartoons, and that's where the nuance is. We'll still continue to have cartoons in the New Times and in the East African and in all sorts of cartoons. But it's the type of cartoons that represent Kangura type of cartoons. So RTLM, this is Rwanda.
It's not about drawing a politician.
People will continue to draw. They do that all the time, and that will not be touched, has not been touched. This law has been there in place. This is not a new law. This law has been in place. It hasn't touched that. It's not going to touch that. It's going to touch gratuitous things that would mean that it's maybe hate speech, maybe
disharmony in the
I'll give you a simple example. In South Africa, there was a painter who painted the sitting president of the Republic naked and exposed some physical parts. Now, that's the kind of cartoons that probably, in South Africa, it was taken down. That's the kind of cartoon that I assume, because that's the only precedent that I have, that would not be accepted. Otherwise, cartoons that we already have in the New Times and in East African, they're not going to be affected, just like they have not been affected in the past.
Okay, good. Let's bring in now Gonzaga, because we deliberately did take some time not to catch on you because we were fixing something with your sound. Now I think it's sorted out. I want you to jump in on this. We've heard from the 3 panelists speaking about that, and I want to still, as you give your general comment on this new development, but still remaining with this issue of Article 233, which actually says humiliation of national authorities and persons in charge of public service. Do you think this will be in line with what we've seen? You know, when we have public proceedings, let's say a parliamentary live session, a live parliamentary session going on national TV, and then the journalist decides to pick a story where a parliamentarian was actually dozing, you know, and then they pick that part and then put it up. Or when we see a national or public figure walking in a torn trouser or a cloth, because this would actually is tantamount to humiliation in one or another. Are these some of the things that you think?
Before I address the Article 233, let me talk about the defamation issue, because as both James and Gatete said, and Doctor, it's an achievement, but it recognizes what has already been in practice. Because since the media reforms began, several years ago, and the new laws that introduced media self-regulation, it was government policy not to prosecute defamation.
Yeah.
So every time people went to police with a defamation case, police would humbly refer them to RMC, as when it concerned the media. But of course, there are some people who are stubborn. They would insist on going to court. Then the government would end up, because when something is criminal, the lawyer can confirm. When something is criminal, the prosecution is forced to get involved. There have been several cases, but fortunately, we won all of them. But now it confirms that the goodwill from government, but also from the media fraternity, that it's possible to solve defamation related to the media through self-regulation. If it fails, it has to go to civil court. Now, concerning Article 233 that talks about humiliation of public officials, I think the main point is on interpretation. Because even our petition to Parliament, we did not ask for the article to be removed. On defamation, we specifically asked that it be removed. This article, we asked for it to be defined better. It wasn't. It stayed as it was in the draft. The concern is not on what will be the outcome. The effect it has on the cartoonist when they are thinking of drawing a particular cartoon. Because he's saying that, Gatito was saying that the cartoons will not stop. But if you follow our media, you notice that our journalists don't cartoon the president. They don't. I've not seen in a local media outlet in Rwanda cartooning the president. I think it's a major failure. Senior government officials, generals, other influential CEOs of big corporations, we don't see. Usually when they do it, it's about other officials.
Or journalists.
Other things, yes. But that article, my interpretation, or our interpretation during our consultations, it could concern every person involved in public affairs, including a traffic policeman, including a teacher who's running a public school, including a DASO, because those ones are cartooned. When you follow GH and so on, they cartoon DASO. But DASO are also carrying out public service. The difference, of course, is that it's very specific, says if that person is carrying out in their official activity. But I would think our job as journalists is to hold power to account. It's one of our main responsibilities. The doctor talked about it. So if we cannot use a style, all means, yes, and a very interesting style of journalism, which has been around for more than 200 years since the printing press came about, then what happens? So the point is, how are we going to interpret what this article talks about? I would think a person holding public office is beyond being humiliated. If you are thin-skinned, why are you in parliament? Why are you in cabinet? If you can get annoyed or if you are humiliated by a drawing of you, then, I mean, you have no business being a mayor, you have no business being a cabinet.
I don't intend to contradict my boss.
Yes.
You're actually my boss.
So he's your boss and you're my boss. I write a column for that.
But that's a position of Rwanda Journalists Association, and I subscribe to it. That's why I'm saying I'm not going to try to contradict that. But let's also remember that this provision is not new.
Yes.
It has been in place for the last 40 years, since 1978. But cartoons, we always have cartoons. There's the drawings, But I think it is the fact that everybody was saying, oh, okay, now everybody's going to, people are moving all the barriers. And then there was that momentum. And then they see this coming back. So it's more to do with something that has not been removed, as opposed to something that has been added.
Has it been holding back the creativity of
That's what Gonzaga explained.
That is what he's saying, and I think it is in order for journalists to continuously say, look, we appreciate the steps taken. We appreciate the progress. Rwanda becoming the third country in Africa to remove defamation, to do all these things despite our history. It's very, very encouraging. But we hope that going forward we can achieve more and better. So I think, in principle, we can still do better. But nonetheless, like I said, this has been in place for the last 40 years, and it has hardly really stopped journalism from.
That's our position is also that as long as media houses, journalists, cartoonists believe they are not breaking the code of ethics, they should go ahead and
They should go ahead and do
yes.
it. All right, let me come back
Absolutely.
to Dr. Caroline here, because you mentioned the need for now journalists to exercise, this full and enjoy this new right that they have. Okay, they've always been having it. As Gatete said, all we're just saying is just reaffirming that you can actually do it without any fear of being criminalized. But I want to read your thoughts. How then do you think this penal code touches on the rest of the other ordinary citizens? Because someone would say, these politicians who are passing this, these parliamentarians who are just thinking about themselves when they're talking about humiliation of national authorities and persons in charge of public service. Today, when you teach your students in class, we are now in an era of citizen journalism. Social media is actually taking root. Someone comes, takes a picture of just an ordinary citizen and just post it on social media, or just say something that would affect them and their families. Yet they're not public figures. The nature of the penal code is what I want us to talk about vis-a-vis the protection of the rest of the citizenry. What is your take on this?
First of all, I want to know, maybe we didn't define defamation.
Yeah.
We are just talking about defamation, but what is defamation in the first case? I think the law of defamation, international, globally, when you say you have been defamed, you should be in position to prove that you had a good reputation and now it has been damaged. That is what defamation is all about. So if the law is saying you cannot cartoon, you should not humiliate public officials and politicians, etc. Now, it means probably, according to this context, those are the people who have a reputation in society, which needs to be protected. But you're talking about the cities, the grassroots people. If you say you have been defamed and you are not a public servant anywhere in this country, what was your reputation before?
Yeah, I had a family, I have my wife, I have my children.
Can you
when you put me in bad light on social media, it will affect me.
Can you be able to prove that you had a good name and now your name has been damaged? That is the issue with defamation. I have had this gentleman, you talked about, you said Rwanda is the third country to remove defamation from in Africa. I think the other countries, if you have not found out yet, others are having defamation under civil laws already.
Yeah. Same thing in Rwanda.
Yes. That is what has just happened now. It has been birthed here, and we are celebrating. But then, if you're saying it's not protecting the other people, the ordinary people like we, the viewers, I think if anyone went to RMC to complain that the journalist has defamed them, then they will put you to task to first prove that you were worth defamation, first of all. Because that is how defamation law works. Yeah. If you have been defamed, what was your reputation before?
Everyone has a reputation.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Every citizen.
That is how it is sorted out. That is how defamation law works. Yeah. Now, if you cannot prove it, that means you have even gotten cheap publicity. You should be happy for being talked about. Now, people have gotten to know you. However, I would think that this provision should include even ordinary citizens. Because if you said you have a family and then you have been defamed, you are drunk somewhere, and people have seen your pictures, so you are not a public figure, and you feel you have been defamed, probably you can also go through the same procedures, but you may not get a fair hearing from my friends here. The association, yes, they'll ask you, okay, what was there before and now? You were married, yes, you had a wife, you had children, they were looking up to you, and now the wife is going to divorce you because you were embarrassed in public. Probably people will be looking at you with an evil eye when you're passing, if you're a religious leader, saying, that is a man who drank and fell in the trench. So I think they need to have that kind of provision so that each person can fit in it. Although it is very hard for you to claim to have been defamed if you didn't have a reputation before. Because you are saying everybody has a reputation. I want to correct you on that. Reputation has components. I don't want to go there. There are about 3 which they use to measure reputation in society. That is a discussion of its own. So it is.
Let's hear his
very
rebuttal on that. Do you think this
interesting
protects
to say I've been
only
defamed.
our Yugozis?
Yes.
I mean, the nature of this penal code and how it is exactly framed. Can you personally go and say, I have actually been defamed, and I think that this person has to be handled like this, like that, by, let's say, RMC and the Association of Journalists?
So every individual is protected by, so you call it defamation. So the difference is you call it defamation because in this context, that's what it is. But no one, regardless of my reputation or my the fact that I'm not known or I'm a normal citizen, I must be protected from all sorts of verbal or written attacks from anyone. They will not go to jail in this case, but I could sue them for reparation, and they will have to pay me. I do not have to prove how famous I was. I just have to prove how what they said on me affected my life. It distressed me, created an environment. I am protected, and that has not been removed. But the thing is that journalists will not go to jail. They will have to pay me a certain amount of money.
Like a lawsuit we're talking about.
The lawsuit will continue. That will continue. In this case of defamation of authorities, that has been removed because the trend has been that, like Gonzaga said, that, so in Kenya, when defamation was decriminalized, it was in fact a Supreme Court judgment that said, in fact, public officials are expected to be more tolerant to defamation than normal citizens. So that's and there are only a few countries that, again, that have removed defamation. But all these countries' argument is that public officials should avail themselves to this, except countries where they have kingdoms and king and so on, who consider themselves above the royals. And this is why usually they are shielded from...
We have the same.
We do not have...
Yes, the article concerning the President of the Republic, it looks the same as a moral...
Great. So what I want us to do right now is just to go through some of the tweets that have been coming through, and then when we come back, we'll definitely be able to slide a bit into the other item that we're talking about on this penal code. Of course, that is on the issue of adultery. It was a specific choice to look into because indeed someone was actually saying that matters of relationships should remain personal and no, the state should actually keep off. We have Louisa, who has just joined us right now and says, how can defamation depend on yourself being a public person? Every citizen has a reputation. This is not anything to make fun of as cheap publicity. Man away. Thank you so much, Louisa, for that particular tweet right there. I like this one. Let's see this one here from Muhire Yves, who says, there's a kind of disconnection between the discussion and the theme. Panelists should have started discussing what was provided for in the repealed penal code and the changes in the new penal code. I'll definitely be able to pick this before we take that break. We had actually made a request for us to be able to have a representative from the Ministry of Justice. It really took us a lot of convincing to just have them come here on the show to talk to us and just create more awareness on this particular issue. And I want to report here and make just a disclaimer that it was not possible to have them. And they have said that they are actually working behind the scenes to actually put together a complete package for the citizens of Rwanda, so that they can be able to come on this show or any other show on TV and radio to talk deeply about what has changed, what has not changed. It's a huge document, and we cannot be able to exhaust all of that right here on this show because of the time that we have. So tonight, we only picked 2 items, and those are of interest. That is the media and, of course, the social issue, and it has to do with adultery. And we'll be able to come back after the break to talk about that. So we're going to be taking a very, very short break right about now. And when we come back, we'll read more of your tweets. Keep them coming. #InFocusRW as always. And we'll see you on the other side of the break. Stay with us.
Many people have been asking what we have been up to. Well, we have told the different stories from decision makers, but this time round it will be different. We will be getting head to head with various influencers and get to the heart of the matter. It is not an easy ride, but we'll endeavor to get you there. It will be insightful, informative, and at times we will agree to disagree, because we are the bridge to your leaders.
Right, we're back. Thank you so much for still being with us. Thank you for joining us. Definitely the conversation was going on even behind the scenes while we were taking that break. But thank you. This is In Focus, and what you need to do is just join the conversation. We're talking about the new penal code in Rwanda. We're not going to be divulging or delving into the entire penal code, but we're just picking just 2 items because of the nature of the time that we have. And we were told by the Ministry of Justice officials that they will be able to plan to give you the full package of what has actually changed. We're just taking that first step as In Focus. So we have tweets that have been coming through. Hashtag, as always, In Focus RW. It helps us to track them. Saidi gives us a definition right here. Defamation is an act of communicating false information to a person that actually injures his reputation, injures the reputation of that person. So I think this has to do is whether you are a public figure or not. If it injures your reputation, it is actually defamation. I have Nadej, a good friend of the program as well, who says, Gatete has a point. You don't have to be someone to use someone for defamation. Every citizen, whether famous or not, should have equal rights on this issue. I totally agree with you as well, right there. So another one right here from Louisa comes back and says, defamation is a violation of your own personal right. It is not a question of destroying a public reputation or fame. It is about destroying your own personality and identity, turning you into a public victim, in my opinion. I think that is loud and clear. Now, let's just take some time and talk about another item that we had actually said we'll be talking about right here. It is concerning the issue of adultery. It's actually under Section 2 of Offenses Against Morality. This is actually a very interesting one. I hear Gatete and the rest of the panelists are smiling. Let me just join them so that we can smile together. Right, so this one under Article 136, adultery is prosecution, adultery and its prosecution plus punishment. It says this: any spouse who has sexual intercourse with a person other than his or her spouse commits an offense. Upon conviction, he or she is liable to imprisonment for a term of not less than 6 months and not more than 1 year. The most interesting part here is that adultery will remain a criminal offense, punishable with imprisonment, among other punishments, even if the aggrieved spouse offers forgiveness to their partner. So, for example, if, God forbid, if my spouse is cheating on me, goes out and I go and report, and then in between the case, she asks for forgiveness, and I forgive, and we fall in love again, the court may not want to hear that nonsense, in quotes. They will still go ahead with this case.
That's what previously,
yes.
anytime you'd feel you have forgiven your spouse,
yes,
the court process would stop.
Yes, but
this
now
time, it will continue.
They'll continue.
Yes.
I want to read your thoughts on this. Let me start with you right here. What do you think about
I think there's something you didn't explain.
Yes.
Now, is this punishment only to those who are married? If the spouse has gone out with someone who, another party, the third party, is the third party involved in the punishment?
Yes.
Or it is the other person that you have reported that is jailed up to 6 months?
No, I think it is.
I've not heard that in the
It is. If you're legally married,
yes,
you have this.
Yes,
you're
exactly.
married,
yes,
and one of you is caught
Yes.
Or, I mean, the other one says that I think my husband or my wife is cheating on me
Yes.
and is actually committing adultery. I have evidence, go to court. And then in between, you say that, you know what, we want to forgive each other, we want to continue living
Yes.
with each other. So drop this case. We are actually, wanting this thing to
Forgiving each
end.
other.
The court says we will continue with this. So the general picture here is, should matters of the family, of relationships, be matters of the state affairs? Or
I think in two ways. In Rwanda, the government recognizes one main type of marriage. And even if people they do the religious functions, the customary weddings, the government recognizes the civil marriage.
Yeah.
And people swear with the national flag.
Yeah.
Is it the flag? Yes. Now, by the fact that people swear with the national flag, the government has the right to meddle into their affairs because they have involved the government in their
so
marriage.
it starts there.
It starts there.
When you touch
Yes.
the flag, you are actually
Yes.
telling the state
That you're
part
welcome.
of
You're part of this, union. If you only went to church and they prayed for you in church, then the church will sit you down and say, God, says forgive and blah, blah, blah. But you have gone to involve the state in it, so you can't expect the state not to be part of it. But also maybe for the issue of moral considerations of this country, they recognize monogamous marriages. That is the marriage law in this country. So maybe to uphold that, the monogamous aspect, the state has to get involved. And that is why I think there are very few cases of cohabitation in this country as compared to the neighboring countries. People can cohabit even for 8 years, then they decide finally to go to church when they are 90 and nobody seems to bother. So in this case, I think the foundation is the state is part of it from the beginning. So people cannot rubbish it when they get into trouble. I think that is the issue.
That is the issue. Gatete,
they have to meddle.
You've been in public and on record saying that the new parliament, once they get into business, they should revisit this and actually remove this, because you feel like matters of people's relationships, the state should keep off. This is what you've said publicly. Why?
So thank you for starting it from that point. Where does this come from, basically? Where does laws like this come from in this day and age? It's because, this used to be a 93% Catholic nation. Today that figure has reduced. This used to be, so that's who our parliamentarians were, really. They were products of the society and the religious background that they held. And they were of a slightly, I would say, different generation than us. They were our elders, our parents. Parliament was made of people who were mostly our parents. Parliament today has had 60% renewal. That's great news. So thank you very much for saying, I hope the new parliament revisits this. The parliament that we have does not have the same background and so on as
so
our
let's get
parents.
to the why. Why do you want them to revisit this? Why
So I want them to be more progressive. And I'm calling upon them, I'm using this platform to call upon our new honorables in Parliament, to whom I enthusiastically gave my vote, and whom I'll be visiting very soon, I suppose, on a law or another, to have another go at this penal code and make it progressive. The thing with penal code is the journey. Penal code has to be dynamic. We will never stop asking the penal code to be reformed, because every time there's new novelty, it has to expand space, it has to expand liberties and freedom, reduce the involvement of the state, encourage more people to settle their issues themselves. Now, let me come back to this issue of involving the state when you're getting married, therefore the state must interfere. Two things. I'll give you a simple example. When I was taking the oath to join the Bar Association, I remember holding the flag of the state to do that. But when I suspended and went to work in a think tank, I did not ask the state to come and get involved. So marriage is a matter that has several aspects. How people deal with their relationship is complex. It is not one thing that one person does. The state actually stops short of saying how sexual intercourse between partners must be conducted. because the state feels, now this is an area, they say partners should live together. But they stop short of deciding how it is going to be conducted, at what hour of the day, of the night, are the third parties going to be involved? All these things, if the couple, even though they are officially married, if the couple is all right with this arrangement, it is not the business of the state, number one. So even some people who...
The argument, Katete, I'm sorry to cut you short on this, because there's this belief that the family is the moral fabric of a nation.
Yeah.
And everything begins in the family. And so if the state keeps off this union, this family, then there's room for problems.
But listen, freedom, human freedom, the concept of freedom even comes from the place where the state must stop at the door.
The state should stop at the door.
The state has to have a place where they cannot come. The invasion of the state has to have a place where it stops.
Okay. And the marriage, the unions is where they should.
It's where they should.
Yeah.
No, I think the whole idea, the spirit is being progressive.
Yeah.
And to go as far as we can really reach in terms of freedoms, and to trust that people can make mature decisions, responsible. People can build their own homes. Yes, obviously, family is the strongest, the first number one unit that you need to build. But there are other provisions for that. It can be handled separately. I mean, you cannot have a state in matters of building families watching over as big brother or being a watchdog. No. That's, I mean, you have had cases of domestic violence, people killing their partners because even out in society, it looks weird. It's like a shame to walk out of a marriage. And I think Rwandans should be told that, yes, it is okay to fall in love. It's okay to wed. It's okay to have kids. Please love them. We encourage you, blah, blah. Put there some incentives, yes. But then it's also okay when things are not working out to move on. Yeah. But for the good of society at the same time, because when you're single, there's the law. Yeah. One, in marriage, when you commit adultery and you're married, your partner has grounds actually to seek a divorce, right? Now that should cater for such things. You get it, and that people. But for me, I want to speak from a more optimistic perspective, because I want to think that there's progress, and like he's saying, there's a much young parliament today, a 23-year-old, 28-year-old, they're members of parliament today. Going forward, you want to think that they want to be more progressive.
So they think a bit different. Yeah. The point of contention, ladies and gentlemen, is the fact that this aspect that if we decide along the way to get counseling and then we forgive each other.
Exactly.
The court, the judge, has the right to say, no, I don't care about your forgiveness. I will continue and make a ruling on this.
Yeah, has a right. It's not like they can determine to end it there. Yeah. It's not that they will still pursue it. Yeah. Like by law, it will depend on what they decide, basically, going forward.
But where did it come from? Let's just clarify briefly what it come from.
Yes.
Apparently, the argument of Parliament, because we all went to Parliament with this petition, we were all together, and presented to them and said, this is an overstretch into people's personal lives. And they said, because in this case, this is the only provision in the Penal Code where we have actually seen regression. The only provision. So the law was more lenient before than it is today. It is harsher today. Why? Because the previous Penal Code, you could actually go and say, I have forgiven my spouse, please discontinue the prosecution, and they would discontinue it. But the argument of parliamentarians was, the problem is every time a spouse would bring in a complaint and the other spouse is detained while the court case is going, the spouse who brought forward the case would receive pressure from the family, from the in-law family, so much so that against their will they would come. So we were trying to create a situation where that pressure does not exist. That's just what the background
is. Which makes
is.
sense, because as long as it is criminal, the point is it being criminal.
Yeah.
which brings in government now.
Yeah.
So the moment it stays criminal, I think for me, I'm okay with government saying we will decide ourselves. But the issue is, okay, should it be criminal? Yeah.
So you feel it should not be criminal?
Aria, he said something about the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And it was a factor even in this registration. It was not public, but we know that the Catholic Church has a very strong lobby. They call MPs every day. They even have committees. They go and meet these people. Not only the Catholic Church, the evangelicals, everywhere.
The religion.
All religion. And, because the question was, the family is the basis for running a society. But monogamous families came when colonialism and the missionaries arrived. Yeah. Previously, it was not. It was not the basis. So what changed? So it's very interesting to see the debate, because I remember one time there was a resolution during the national dialogue that advising the youth to reduce the cost of weddings, but they never provide a solution. One of the things I was thinking is that when you're going to marry, you marry the same one like 4 times. You go to Gusaba, you go to Civile, you go to the church, you also have a reception, even Butukura. So you have it's the same couple having 5 events. Yeah. So why can they consolidate one? So you choose. Because you see, government recognizes contracts. Yeah. If say you have a company, you have a consultancy, have an organization, we can enter into a contract between us. Government recognizes because we already have legal status as businesses or organizations. Why can't they recognize contracts if churches are registered with RGB, they have legal status? Why does the government recognize them as capable of issuing a contract of marriage? And why must everybody go to the district or the sector? You go to the parents, you go to the church.
But you see, the issue here, and I want to bring Dr. Caroline as I go for the final time on the screen, is that we have couples feeling secure, that their unions are actually being protected by the state when it comes to these articles. For example, Article 138 is on concubinage. Yeah, if you have these other 2 ladies and you're found,
Just put a question to you.
Yes.
Do you wish to stay with your wife only because the state compels you to do so?
Of course, no.
Is that the relationship you want to be in?
Of course, no. But
where the state says if you leave your wife, we'll put you in jail. Yeah. Is that something you want to be in?
Of course, nobody wants that. But at the end of the day, the spouses sort of feel safe when they see some of this.
I think us being a religious country, community, we should leave some of these things to God. and to religious people. I mean, what are they going to do?
And
the bishops and the pastors and
so you want to say it's just being put there for the sake of
we should be able to separate. We shouldn't have go back to history where church and the state have always been intertwined.
Just for the sake of our public, so that you're aware of this. Under the new penal code, Article 138, concubinage, it says a person who lives as a husband and wife with a person other than his or her spouse, while one or both of them are married, commits an offense. Upon conviction, he or she is liable to imprisonment for a term of more than 1 year and not more than 2 years. So make sure you ask that person, are you married? Lest you get in trouble. Let's wrap this up and take a look at some of the tweets that have come through, because we have only less than 3 minutes to go. We'll be able to look at that. As we do that, James, I just want your closing remarks, just as we go. Where do we move from here?
Yeah. Two points I want to take note of. Yeah. One is an act of progressiveness, going forward. Yeah. The point on the issue of prostitution, we didn't touch it. Yeah. But the fact that government has removed the requirement to seek a court's permission. Yeah. For somebody to procure abortion. I think it's very good progress, and that is really should be noted, that we are taking steps in the right direction. Number 2 is the point of fairness on the issue of prostitution. Previously, sex workers. Previously, it was the ladies who were in trouble. Yeah. But now the buyer is equally in trouble.
Also equally in trouble.
No, not equally. Yeah. The sex worker is no longer in trouble. It is only the buyer who is in trouble. That's the new thing.
No, I think the sex worker remains. It has not been decriminalized on the part of the sex worker, but it is heavier on the buyer.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can verify that.
So we're going to start solving the problem from the buyers. Okay.
But it's fair. It is fair. It may not be
fair, but
progressive if you like, but it's fair on both sides.
Consent, as long as there's consent.
Gonzaga, very quickly.
The most interesting part,
Yes.
Consent. What do you mean
Gatete,
consent?
please. Gonzaga, yes, close
yeah,
it.
the most interesting part I found is the chapter on sexual crimes is where people between 14 and 18, there's no defilement if both are within that age group.
So it's been reduced.
Because usually you'd find a boy who's 17 being charged for fighting a 15-year-old or another 17-year-old.
So all these are children now.
They are all children, but of a certain age, so there is no crime in there. That is very progressive. But also the fact that solitary confinement
Has been removed.
It was not practical, but was also inhumane. So this is very progressive. That is
Great.
now.
Gatete, real quick, because you know how much.
So we forgot one person in this adultery thing. Apparently, if you are the person who aided in the commission of the adultery is also liable. That means if you cheated on your spouse with a third party.
Yes.
Now in law there is a principle called pacta sunt servanda,
Yeah.
which means a contract is only valid among members who signed it. 2, 3, 4, 5, it doesn't matter.
Yes.
Now, a person who has not signed up onto the contract,
Yeah.
but normally should not be held accountable for the effects of that particular contract. So in this case, a person who's single and has never gone to
marry.
sector and take an oath to be faithful to anyone should not be going to jail for lack of faithfulness to anyone.
Okay.
So these are just technicalities I'm telling you that shows you. But there's another one point.
Yeah. Real quick, Gatete. Otherwise, we'll be able to
The dangers of this,
You're
because
being
I want
unfair
it-
to Dr. Caroline because
I want this to be clear that I'm not in support of adultery,
Right.
because it's immoral, whatever. However, I am seeing a situation where it is used, and that's why I'm talking about it. It is used as a tool to blackmail spouses, and yeah, basically that's
the
what
conversation will continue on that one. Dr. Caroline, you have the last one.
You asked me about concubinage.
Yes.
I think that issue is subject to more discussions because the laws here do not allow that because of the monogamous type of marriages that the government recognizes, and also the moral perspective of it. They want to protect both sides of the families. And probably people, these gentlemen are busy saying this is progressive, this is non-progressive. But every country has its own national sovereignty. So if Rwanda has even the cultural background of it, the issues of national sovereignty need to be upheld, even in the law.
Yeah.
So I will think some of these laws need to be discussed, and probably the issues of marriage can also involve the families, because when people are getting married, they involve their own families, not only the state to take on the issues, but even families need to be part of the discussion.
So we need to ensure that the families also take part
in the
making
discussion.
the discussion, right?
Yes.
Right, of course. That is definitely where we definitely put an end to this conversation. We've still been having tweets right there. Louisa says it is not clear about this. Who can report? Only the other spouse or also any other person knowing about the adultery. If you've seen and you know that someone is married and you've been seeing them doing some crazy things around there, I think, I don't know, what should you advise them? You go report, I think you can be able to make that judgment from your own self. But I want to tell you this, that we definitely are hoping that we'll have the right officials to come and talk to us about this, because we definitely need this information. It's really important because not so many people know about this penal code and what is entailed in it. And so it is my urgent and appeal to the leaders in charge. Please make an effort. Let's have these conversations with you. Let's have more information because it is important. We do not want people being arrested, being charged, and not knowing why they're being arrested for that. So we're going to be seeing you again next time, same place, same time, on other conversations. As always, I'm Eugene and Nangwe. Goodbye for now.